You're listening to Big World Network.
Delroy Versus the Yshtari, Season 2, Episode 7, Death Dance. Written and read by Baron Stevens. When I reached the corridor where the Rutherford's Revenge was docked, I skidded to a halt. 2 Marines still guarded the entrance. I didn't have time to debate with them, so I tried the direct approach. I walked up to them and smiled. "Hey, what's up?" "Move along," one of them said. I stepped up next to him and whispered conspiratorially, This is kind of embarrassing, but I forgot something on board the ship." "No one is allowed on board without the General's orders." Fortunately, during my acting career, I'd played a few poor urchin roles. "Please, good sir, if you have any compassion, I only need a couple of minutes to get a special ointment. I promise I won't touch anything else." I grimaced as if I were in pain. "What kind of ointment?" "It's for a rare hemorrhoidal condition. Your medical bay doesn't carry it. Really, if I don't apply some soon, the bleeding—" He stepped aside. "You have 2 minutes." "Oh, thank you. You're a gentleman and a scholar." "And a sucker." I slipped past him and onto the ship. I jogged up to the control panel and pushed the button to close the airlock door. Nothing happened. I pushed it again. Still nothing. I didn't know if the button was damaged or if I was doing something wrong. At that moment, I wished I'd spent more time studying how the controls worked instead of having Minx do everything. I stood there for the next 3 minutes trying to figure out another way to close the door. At any moment, the Marines would come in and arrest me, thus putting an end to my daring rescue plan. I paused. Maybe that wouldn't be such a bad thing, since I'd at least still be alive. But no, deep down, I knew I couldn't give up. Trina's husband's life was at stake, along with several others. And, for once in my life, I needed to succeed at something, even if it did get me killed. Clattering came from the airlock. I spun around, desperately looking for anything I could grab that would look like hemorrhoid ointment. I didn't see anything. Minx rolled around the corner and into view. "Oh, hello, manure brain." I put my hand on my chest and let out the breath I'd held. "Oh, it's you. I was afraid you were a Marine coming to shoot me." "I could go back and get one to do that for you if you wish." "You probably would, too." "No, that's okay. What are you doing here?" "Miss Stella asked me to download the ship's travel logs, but I could ask you the same thing. What are you doing here?" I decided to tell him the truth, for once. "I came to take this ship and go rescue the men on the planet." Minx's LED screen showed the wavy lines of confusion for a second, before he bent over and let out a metallic laugh. "Oh, good one, skunk breath." "I don't suppose you know why the airlock doors won't close?" "You have to press the green button on the left side of the panel to close the Ulysses door first, before pushing the button for this door." "But I'm afraid I can't let you do that. My character evaluation software informs me that you only want to steal the ship so that you can escape. I'll have to turn you in." He spun around and headed toward the airlock. I couldn't let him do that. As Minx passed under an open panel that had been knocked loose during the crash, I dashed up to it and yanked out one of the power cables. Sparks erupted as I spun around and thrust the exposed wires into Minx's side. A loud pop sounded from inside Minx. He rolled forward a few more feet before stopping, smoke billowing from his cooling vents. "Sorry, old buddy, but I had to." I went back to the control panel and pushed the buttons Minx indicated. To my relief, the airlock doors slid closed. A few seconds later, I heard pounding from the other side. I released the docking clamps to allow the Rutherford's Revenge to drift away. The Ulysses continued to race from the Yshtari fleet, not even slowing to check on my escape. I turned on the front view screen and saw the Yshtari fleet closing in fast. I fired up the engines and moved the control stick hard right in an effort to get out of their way. Too little too late. And I knew I wasn't a good enough pilot to steer my way through them. But Minx, with his piloting ship, might be able to. I ran to a cabinet where Minx's spare fuses were stored. After pulling one out, I ran to Minx and popped open the access panel. I'd done this a few times before, since this was the 4th time I'd short-circuited Minx. Only the 2nd time on purpose, though. I popped out the old fuse and put the new one in. Minx's head looked up as his LED screen came back to life. You short-circuited me again, didn't you, imbecile? It was for your own good. But come, I need you to pilot us through the Yshtari fleet without crashing into any of them. And why should I help? Because, if this imbecile crashes into an Yshtari ship and dies in a fiery explosion, you will too. Good point, he said with a hint of panic in his voice. Minx rolled up to the control panel and took a hold of the flight yoke. By now, we were almost to the fleet. Minx guided the ship around with several sharp movements. The Yshtari ships seemed to ignore us as we zipped through them. Soon, we reached clear space on the other side. Nice work, I said, legitimately impressed. Thank you, Armpit Face. Minx looked at the scanner screen. Except one of the Yshtari ships is turning around to follow us. Then full speed ahead. Let's see if we can outrun them. Minx complied. The good news was our engines were in full working order. The bad news was that the Yshtari ship was keeping up. We raced through space for a couple of hours when I noticed one of the indicator lights come on. It was red, too, which is never a good sign. What's that mean? I asked, pointing at it. It means we're losing thrust. We've been pushing the engines for too long. The scanner showed that the Yshtari ship was now closing on us fast. I went into the weapons console. What are the odds of the blaster cannons working? About as good as you and Stella getting married and having 20 kids. I couldn't help but smile. Wow, that good? That bad. Oh, ye of little faith. Minx yanked on the flight yoke as a 10-meter-wide horseshoe-shaped projectile shot past us. Why are they firing? Don't they want to catch me and eat me? Not anymore, oh he who drinks from toilets. Minx yanked the stick again as another projectile shot by on the other side. They're getting closer. I won't be able to avoid the next shot. Panic built in his voice. I pushed Minx aside as I took over the controls. Then I have an idea. I turned off the engines and fired up the deceleration rockets. What are you doing? Minx asked, now totally panicked. I'm surrendering. You can't be serious. I am. I'm assuming they'd rather eat me than blow me to smithereens. At least, that was my theory. With the Yshtari, it's really hard to tell what they want. To my relief, the Yshtari scout ship slowed down and came alongside us. A few seconds later, their docking clamps latched on. I locked the door before they could open it and collapsed our docking clamps to theirs. It would only take them a few minutes to cut through, but I hoped it would give me enough time to try my desperate plan. Since their engines were now shut down, I took advantage of the opportunity and fired up the engines of the Rutherford's Revenge. We shot forward, and I pointed us toward the planet. What are you doing? Minx asked. We'll crash. That's my plan. They can't shoot us while we're docked together. With any luck, we'll survive the crash. This plan sucks. He put his arms over his head. Let's just pray that this ship is built tougher than theirs. Engaging prayer mode now. As we drew near the planet, our two ships began to whirl about. The Yshtari pilot had turned their engines back on in an effort to take control of the flight path. Fortunately, I had the bigger engines. With luck, I could control the where and how we crashed. Scraping sounds came from the side of the ship as they tried to release their docking clamps, but the Rutherford's Revenge clamps were bigger and stronger. We entered the planet's gravity well, and I steered us toward the mountain range where the Yshtari base was located. The other pilot continued fighting for control, but I was mostly winning the tug-of-war. Which direction to where the men are held? I asked Minx. He peeked out from under his arms as he answered. About 10 kilometers northwest of the main base. He put his hands over his head again. I fought with the yoke until we were pointed that direction. It didn't stay there, though, as the ship jerked hard to the left, taking us off course. Great, I said as I pulled as hard as I could. We were now barreling out of control toward a large mountain. I tried to pull us back, but now gravity was taking over and not allowing me to. There was only one thing I could do. I quit fighting by shutting down our engines. What are you doing now? Minx asked, in total panic mode. I'm letting them pull us closer to that mountain. Closer? Have you gone insane? No argument from me. Prepare to release the docking clamps on my mark. What for, moron? Just do it. The mountain loomed larger on the front view screen. The Yshtari ship strained to steer us away from it. When we were lined up the way I wanted, I fired our engines back up to keep us on course. Now! I shouted to Minx as I pulled hard on the controls. Our clamps released. The Yshtari ship veered away and straight into the mountainside to erupt in flames. I didn't have time to exult, though, since we were too close to the mountain as well. Metal scraped against stone with a deafening shriek. We bounced off the mountain and careened between two others. When I looked out the front view screen, I saw that we were tumbling straight toward the Yshtari base. I managed to pull up barely in time to avoid crashing into one of their dome buildings. We turned slightly and headed up into the mountains on the other side. We were still going too fast. When I saw that our deceleration rockets weren't slowing us down enough, I let go of the yoke and grabbed onto the control panel to brace for impact as the ship scraped against the side of a rocky hill. There was a sudden, jolting stop that threw us forward and against the front wall. We were then tossed about as the ship rolled its way down the side of the hill. Once it finally came to a halt, I sat up to check if I had broken any bones. I hadn't, but it sure felt like I had. At least we were alive. Minx uncrumpled himself from a ball. "Nice landing, you Skargakian yodel beast." I clenched my teeth. "Really? Must you? I'm sick and tired of all these insults. No more." "But what about Miss Stella's orders to insult you at every opportunity?" "You're also programmed for self-preservation, right? If you insult me again, I'll stick that power cable into you until your central memory core fries. Got it?" "I see, sir. I shall endeavor not to insult you." I painfully stood up and rubbed my aching shoulders. The warning lights on the control panel informed me that the Rutherford's Revenge would not be flying again soon. I wish there had been another way to get that Yshtari ship off us. "You could have tried breathing on them." "Oh, sorry, sir. I forgot." I ignored the comment. "Where are we?" Minx rolled back to the control panel and checked the scanner. "We appear to be only a couple of kilometers from the men's prison." "Okay, here's the plan. I'll go free the men while you go back to the Yshtari base and get the cruise ship ready for launch." "Why the cruise ship?" "Because it's the only ship that still works, and we're going to need to make a rapid escape. Will you do that for me, please?" "Certainly, but not for you, sir. For Miss Stella." "That's fine, as long as it gets done." We left the ship and went our separate ways. In spite of the rough crash, I was amazed at how well the whole of the Rutherford's Revenge had held together. I guess it was a pretty tough little ship. It took me 20 minutes to reach the compound. I still had the mini security bypass kit hidden in my clothes, and I pulled it out. When I reached the gate, though, I found I didn't need it. It was unlocked. I pushed it open and walked in. "Hello?" I shouted out. There were several shed-like buildings, similar to the ones at the women's compound. I entered the closest one and looked around. Inside were more beds stolen from the cruise ship and some luggage scattered around, but no one was there. I searched the other 3 buildings and found the same thing. At the far end of the compound were several pieces of alien equipment. They looked like giant metal insects. They loomed menacingly over me as I walked past them and toward the mine shaft. I guessed that they were used for mining. Once on the other side, I stared into the mine to see if the men were there. "Ah, there you are," I heard a metallic voice say behind me. I turned around to tell Minx to hurry to the cruise ship, but instead came face to video face with another 300 series Butler bot. "You were looking for me?" I asked him. "Of course, sir," he answered cheerfully. "I need to take you to join the rest of our guests." "Where are they?" "They're at the main compound. It appears that the women passengers have all escaped, so our masters have decided to feast on the men instead." "Well, I hate to disappoint you, but I'm not on the menu." "Why, of course you are, sir. Now, let's get back with the others." "No, thanks." I turned to leave when I saw 7 more Butler bots approaching. 2 of them were armed with Yshtari crossbow rifles. "I'm afraid I must insist, sir."
This has been a presentation of Big World Network. Visit us on bigworldnetwork.com for more free weekly series, or follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening.
You're listening to Big World Network.